Hi and hello. I hope all is well with you wherever you are in the world today, and welcome. I wanted to talk about this movie, The Backrooms. I watched it last night. It's fresh in my head. I can't stop thinking about it. It was a wonderful movie, and I want to get my thoughts out there. So, I want to talk about it because this main character's name is Clark, which fascinatingly is sort of a derivative of the word clerk, which is sort of what he ends up becoming in this movie. But I'm going to get ahead of myself here. So let's just put a pin in that for now. All right. I also want to talk about this book called The Fountainhead. And there's a particular character in The Fountainhead that I want to focus on. His name is Peter Keating. Peter Keating in the book The Fountainhead is a very pedestrian architect. Okay, he's middle of the road, a little bit of talent, but for the most part, very mediocre. Okay, nothing really special about him, although he is very charming and he knows how to schmooze with the right people. He knows how to talk to the right people and impress the right people with his charisma. Not necessarily with his talent as an architect, but he believes that he can get ahead in this life as an architect if he snuggles up with the right people and says the right thing. So that actually works for him, sort of. The contrast to his character is the main character, Howard Rourke. I don't want to talk a lot about Howard Rourke because his character is sort of a cartoon of the ideal man. That's sort of how Ayn Rand writes. That's how she likes to write. But I'm only mentioning him because he is supposed to be the contrast between the type of person that a man could be if they didn't compromise, as opposed to the type of man that Peter Keating is, who compromises all the time. And when I say compromise, what I truly mean by that is one's integrity of themselves, their true selves. Peter Keating doesn't really have a true self. As I understand it, my memory of the book goes that he has a true passion for painting, but his mother nudged him into architecture because it was a more lucrative career. He could be more successful. His true passion, though, is painting. I wonder what would have happened for Peter Keating if he ignored the peer pressure of his mother and decided to become a painter. I don't know. But we do know that he decided to become an architect. And so every time Peter Keating is sort of put in this position of having to make a choice between doing something that he wants at a risk or taking the safer path and appeasing others, he always chooses a safer path to appease others. But he never really satisfies himself. And this is what's called, as I understand it through the philosophy of Ayn Rand, sort of the secondhand life. You're not really living the life that you want to be living. You're living the life that you're assuming other people want you to live because you're constantly doing what other people want you to do. And the only reason why I'm going into the Fountainhead and discussing Peter Keating is because Clark is a kind of Peter Keating. This is who he has become. The ideal version of himself, sort of funny, that he wants to be an architect too. Through the course of the story, he's drawing little pictures in his office. He's got architecture drawings all over the walls. This is preoccupying his mind all the time, that he wishes he was an architect, that he was doing that work. Although it's also explained at the beginning of the movie that he's going through some sort of a divorce or separation. And for the sake of this conversation, I'm going to say divorce just to make it easier. I can't quite remember if he was married or just had a girlfriend. But it begins sort of with him in a shrink's office, role playing out a conversation that he was having, an argument he was having with his wife before he got kicked out of the house. You know, he's coming home late after work. He goes to the bar and has a bunch of drinks, and he's not spending quality time with his wife. He's distant and seemingly drinking away his sorrows at the bar and coming home late. And he's having this sort of discussion with the shrink, and he's explaining to the shrink through the role play that he's resentful because he is working at a furniture store, not being the architect that he wants to be, because he's paying the bills. He's bought this house so that they could both live there, so they could start a family, and put her through college to become a lawyer. She's in law school, but she's not working. She's not earning an income. So it's all on his shoulders. And he feels this immense amount of pressure to do all this stuff because, as I can only assume, he thinks that this is what's going to make his wife happy. But it didn't make her happy, and it didn't make him happy. Nobody's happy now. And so he's out. He's out. He gets kicked out, and he's living in his furniture store now, where he has to sort of do this pirate gimmick to sell furniture, which I think the pirate, it's presented as a pirate, but really it's kind of like a clown. All right, let's just say that because it's easier for the metaphor to make sense. He doesn't want to dress up like a silly pirate and make commercials to sell furniture. That's not his dream. His name is Clark, by the way, which is a derivative of the word clerk, which is kind of what he becomes in life. Just serving the public and selling furniture. This is not what he wants to be doing, and he has all this resentment, but I can only imagine that Clark has been doing this his entire life. It's encoded in his DNA, and the movie kind of goes through this story through the character Mary Klein, who is his psychiatrist. She has these books on tape talking about how to self-help and stuff like that, right? And she talks about these loops that people have, patterns of behavior, right? And so Clark's pattern of behavior is to always divert away from what's going to make him happy, and he gives himself to the people around him. And it doesn't make him happy, and it also doesn't make anybody else happy, even though he probably assumes that it would. But for the people he cares about the most, it doesn't. So he wanted to start a family and have kids, but that's out. That's not happening now. He's living at the furniture store, and he's talking to the psychiatrist. He's trying to get help on regulating his feelings and sorting out his thoughts and problems, and trying to find a direction forward with what to do with his life. And he's stuck because he doesn't understand how his life turned out this way. It seems wrong. It's all wrong. And obviously, life is cruel, and these things can happen to somebody, especially if this is your pattern of behavior. But it turns out that in a certain way, Clark is an architect because in his mind, he has this labyrinth of the backrooms going on, which is a metaphor for the subconscious mind, I believe, through the course of this movie. Now, there's some twists and turns that make it a little complicated, make it a little fuzzy, but let's just focus on the metaphor of what this is for the sake of the symbolism. Backrooms are his subconscious mind. It's what that is. And he goes downstairs into the downstairs section of his furniture store, and he finds a wall that he could walk through, and lo and behold, he's in the back rooms where everything is wrong, everything's distorted and weird and strange, and nothing really makes sense. And he's walking around, and he keeps hearing this thumping sound, something stalking him seemingly. And so it's kind of scary, kind of spooky. You're kind of wondering what's going on with that. He runs away from it, as any sane person would, and he's investigating. He gets his crew, two of his employees that he hired to help him out sorting this place out, and they die in the back rooms because it doesn't say it explicitly, but the reality is he murdered them because he's kind of a psychopath at this point. He's gone psychotic. He's broken, right? He's totally broken. The divorce has totally broken him. He's out, right? So he's like gone a little crazy, and he's just in his own head now, spinning and walking around aimlessly through the back rooms. And his psychiatrist eventually shows up to his place of work to see and check on him, and she also stumbles into the back rooms. And here's where it gets a little bit complicated, because some of the backstory about his psychologist or psychiatrist or whatever you want to call it, probably psychiatrist is the right term, kind of talks about her childhood a little bit. They just touch on that. In her childhood, her mother was cuckoo bananas, and they put her in a psych ward, and she was just a child having experienced being raised by a psycho or crazy person or whatever you want to call it. And so that obviously did a number on her, which seemingly is what inspired her to become a psychologist. And she wants to help people that are probably struggling, as her mother did. One can only assume, right? And so she's now locked in the back rooms with Clark. And Clark has captured her, tied her down, and he's explaining to her how, once again, they're going back to this role play scenario where he's explaining all of his plights with his wife. And she tells him point blank in that conversation, you know what your problem is that you don't accept accountability for anything. It's always someone else's fault. And I can understand that, because from his perspective, it is someone else's fault. They put him on the spot to decide whether he was going to be selfish and choose the path that would make him happy, or do the altruistic charitable measure and do something that's going to make them happy. And he wants to be a good person. Society is always pushing you to do these good, selfless acts. So why isn't he being rewarded with gratitude? Why isn't he being praised for all this? How come he's getting kicked out of the house that he's paid for? How come his wife is unhappy with him when he's doing all this marvelous work despite his sacrifice? He's not the architect doing the things that he wants to be doing, but he's funding her so she could live her dreams. What about him, right? Where's him in all this? So I can understand, in a certain sense, I can empathize with why he blames the world for all his problems, because the world has asked him time and time again to make these sacrifices, and he wants to be a good person. But that's the issue right there. He's not even a person. He's just a tool. He's been used as a tool, and he feels used as a tool, I assume. But the back rooms is a metaphor for his subconscious, right? So the deeper into the back rooms you go is sort of like a deeper into the subconscious mind you go, and the deeper you go, the more distorted and weird it gets. And since he's kind of broken and gone a little crazy, the reality of what he truly is this clown, this pirate, and it's gone crazy. And so this manifestation of this caricature version of himself that exists in reality to sell furniture also exists in his subconscious mind as a killer. And so it's this looming figure in the movie, and it, at a certain point, the psychologist tells him, he goes, I don't want to change. I don't want to change. I feel safe like this. I don't know. I can't do the risky thing and live for myself. It's safer to continue to sacrifice myself. And she says, I can't help anybody. I can't help anybody. And she kind of, in her own story arc, she kind of realizes that. But also, she tells him, it's okay. Don't change. If you feel safe in the back rooms, if this is where you want to be, is locked in your subconscious mind, reeling and reeling and reeling forever, then go ahead if that's what you want to do. If you want to continue to self-sacrifice for other people around you and to the point of your insanity, no one's stopping you. Go right on ahead. And even then, at that point, he goes to this monster figure, and the monster figure is holding him up because he's looking like he's going to kill him. And he goes, it's okay. It's okay. She says we don't have to change. See, that's a funny thing. I thought while I was watching the movie, is I was like, even in this moment, he's not deciding his own fate. He had to wait for a psychiatrist to give him permission to do that. So he is still just waiting for other people to decide how he wants to live his life. He doesn't know how to live his life, and he doesn't know how to achieve the dreams he wants or to make the right sacrifices he wants to get those dreams. He's going to rely on other people to tell him what to do. And this is exactly what got him here in the first place. So as soon as he says that, this caricature, this giant pirate monster looking thing, kills him in cold blood. And then the psychiatrist runs away. And it gets a little bit fuzzy here because it's odd because there's seemingly some kind of like science experiment. These scientists are watching what's going on inside of the back rooms, but they explain that they were an MRI company making MRI machines, but now they're in the business of whatever this is. I know all this sounds so strange and all over the road, but if you watch the movie, it kind of explains it through the story. So I apologize. I'm not doing a great job piecing all this together, but yeah, so other people can enter into the back room. So it's not necessarily a metaphor for the subconscious mind. It is something you could walk into. But I do think it is a metaphor for the subconscious mind because it never really truly explains what the back rooms even is. All they keep saying is that they want more information about what these things are. And I just suspect they are asking about the subconscious mind. They want to know how consciousness works and how um, complicated it really can be on a human level. And so the psychologist sort of escapes the back rooms, and these scientists who have been observing have captured her, and they're interviewing her, and they're asking her to explain her story, how she got there, what was it like in there, how far deep in did she go, help them map it out, help them gain more access, gain more information on what this even truly is. And I just really think that they're only asking about how does consciousness work? We want to know how consciousness works. You have tapped in, you're the psychologist, you tapped into this person's subconscious, his inner psyche, is what I think they're saying in this movie in a metaphorical sense. You've tapped in, you've gone deep. We want to know more. We want to know all about it. We need to map all this out so we can unlock the secrets of the human element, how the mind works. And so she's just as confused and puzzled as anyone else, but through her skill as a psychologist, she managed to go in pretty deep. Um, and I really think that's what this movie is sort of about. It's sort of a cautionary tale, I think, about what happens to a person when they sacrifice too much of themselves to the point where there is no self anymore. This guy is not himself. He doesn't even have a self. He is whatever the world has made of him. He hasn't made himself into anything except for this comical pirate looking thing, which turns out to be controlled by a psychopath. And that's what I think it's all about. Yeah, and um, I hope I made sense of that. You got to see the movie; it's really good. I enjoyed it immensely, and so I just think it's fascinating. You know, I was talking to my friend after we watched the movie, and I was telling him about this conversation I had the other day in relation to this film, and I was saying like it's weird that a lot of people have this image in their mind of like, let's just say a lamp, right? And then you have a pencil and you tell them to draw an image of a lamp. Now some people are going to be really skilled artists, other people not so much, but if you have the image in your mind, which is a part of your body, and you have a pencil in your hand, why wouldn't you be able to draw with perfect precision exactly what you're imagining in your mind's eye on the piece of paper? I don't understand the disconnect between the mind and the hand. why those two things aren't working together to form a perfect image of a lamp that you imagine in your head. There's some sort of a disconnect there. Now, obviously, you can work on that and you can get better at drawing lamps from your imagination. That takes skill, but really what you're doing is you're training your concentration. I imagine that's how that works. You're just getting better at concentrating and drawing more precisely using the different tricks to make the shading look right or the lighting look right from the lamp or whatever it is. But the issue is there's this distortion between the hand and the brain. And so the memories work the same way. Memories are hard to conjure, they're not accurate. And your brain is also really, really good at telling you lies to get you to continue to do whatever it is that you need to be doing. It wants you to preserve energy. For the sake of preserving energy, it will just sort of feed you a lie, and you will completely blithely ignore the lies so that you can go about your business. And it really is fascinating to think about because when you are, let's say, reading, right? Let's say you have on the wall all these different words, pages of words, right? And you just see them as your mind tells you, your eyes tell your mind that you're looking at a wall with all these pages with words on them. But you don't know what those words are until you concentrate, focus, and read the individual words to explain what the meaning of the messages of the words are. I have a train of thought here. I am going somewhere with this. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because your mind will only give you the information that you need through a sort of peripheral lens. And if you need to read those words, you can force yourself to do it. But your mind, for the most part, doesn't want you to do it for the sake of preserving energy. And so to actually read and concentrate on those words for a prolonged period of time depletes a lot of energy. That's why learning new things is difficult because you're concentrating. It takes a lot of energy. Reading itself doesn't seem like a difficult task, but if you're absorbing all this knowledge and information, you will do that all day long and you will be dog tired at the end of the day because you have run yourself ragged learning so much. So a simple thing like reading and thought processing is difficult. It can be, but if you're not doing that through the course of your day, you won't run yourself dog tired, which tells me at least that for the most part you are on autopilot through the course of your day. That gets back to the analogy that the movie was using earlier, these loop cycles that you go through. Everybody has a pattern. Everybody's doing these things all the time, and you just fall into whatever works and whatever's easiest for the most part. And it is difficult to train yourself out of these habits. So if you are the type of person who is self-sacrificing to the point where you're not happy with yourself, you got to stand up for yourself. It isn't going to be easy, you got to be tough. I think that's what this movie is kind of speaking to. I really, truly do. Anyways, I guess I've run on long enough. Ciao. Thanks for listening. Bye bye.